Welcome back to Games Revealed. I'm James Brink, and we are one. So today I want to talk about my 7-day journey to the insane asylum by using the Steam Deck. But no, really, it was a fun week. I had, like I said in the past videos, if you watched them, I had a lot of highs and a lot of lows. Like I played a lot of old games that were really fun, played a lot of new games that were really fun. But installing some applications was a little stressful, and just the whole process of doing content creation was a little stressful. So we're going to talk about just the whole experience and kind of wrap this up in a nice little bow as we end this challenge. Now, let's start off. But before we do that, make sure to like, subscribe, bash that bell with your crowbar. Now, the first day was rough. I will have to admit. I spent the whole day, I worked from home. I spent the whole day working and installing stuff. I didn't prepare really much. I mean, the emulators were essentially set up for like SNES and N64, but beyond that, I had to do all that this week. And VS Code programming, whatever it was, for the most part on the desktop mode, I had to do, and it was not fun. And also was. This is a... Okay, let's rewind that back a little bit. It wasn't fun to do the Unreal stuff and then try to video edit and then have it crash after 5 hours of trying to install... Well, it would have succeeded eventually, installing Unreal Engine 5. So, I will have to say, the Discover app for Flatpak on this, like, so you can install Flatpak versions of applications, is awesome. I really liked it, and we're going to get into some of my top 10 favorite apps or apps that maybe recommend and why later on in this video. But I loved that part of it. So setting up the apps on this was great. That being said, OBS and streaming, not so much. And it was kind of a cluster F with both the internet going out and also with just locking up. Like at one, I tried it again, and you can only do it so much. Like I'm not going to create like 5 streams to try to get this to work on my channel. So after the second one just failed because the computer decided to just lock up, I was like, I'm done. And yes, maybe in some other operating system, maybe a different version of Linux could have fixed that. That's not what the challenge was. The challenge was SteamOS. I love SteamOS, actually. I like what they've done. It's, for the most part, a fairly smooth operating system slash whatever else this is. Gaming device with desktop mode, game mode. But streaming just was disastrous. Even recording videos is actually difficult. I've had to re-record multiple videos because of audio issues, mainly, and it could just be support. It could be just there could be so much that goes into it with all my equipment and camera, and that also goes into like the USB is not very strong on this thing. USB-C, well, okay, it's strong enough. It's just there's one USB-C port, so I had to string hubs and stuff. So I actually have 2 hubs hooked up to this thing, daisy chained, and that could have caused some of the issues. Actually, technically, I guess they're both powered, but the one that I have hooked up into the camera, which works, and it was the only way to get the camera to run properly, and it still is not great. So in the end, for power users, if you like, I guess we can leave that for the end of this. That's actually something, yeah, we're going to leave that for the end. I have my final conclusion and everything, and I'm going to sound a little negative, but really, it wasn't a bad experience. It just was a bad experience in the sense of like all the stuff I have to get done in a week, and between work and doing this stuff and whatever. Yes, I worked on my MacBook, but I still had to, once I was done with the MacBook, to try to get videos out. I had to figure things out, which I'm fine with. It's just on Windows and Mac it works. So, okay, video editing. Yeah, like I said, it was not great. It was okay. Flowblade was not bad video editor. It just wasn't great. It didn't have that many options, and I didn't really try to just rip it open and do what everything I could. I didn't have the time to. I definitely prefer my other applications on my Windows device or even on Mac, because it supports the .246, I believe, codecs. I could be wrong on that. I can always mess that up. The free version of DaVinci does not support it. So with that, did come the goodness of the EMU deck and getting Uzu and all that stuff running on it. I got everything that I cared about, which I guess I didn't test Wii U or Wii, which there's not anything I want to play right now on there. I didn't test that stuff, but I got Xbox, PlayStation 1, all the goodness going. And yeah, like there's some caveats there with the PlayStation stuff. You got to get BIOSes for the PlayStation in order to actually have it run. And it didn't, and that's fine. And for legal reasons, they can't just bundle it in, from my understanding. So you have to go find it yourself or rip it from your own PlayStation and whatnot. So once that's all set up, that's fine. With the Switch, it's a newer device. It's a little bit hairier, and I wanted the ROMs from it. So you also need keys and ROMs from your Switch in order to run Uzu. It just was a little difficult to, if you want to do it the right way, in my opinion, the gray hat way, kind of, where you have to essentially jailbreak or, do a homebrew system on your Switch. Once I got that all going, I was able to rip my ROMs off my games and play them on my deck. Well, it was good. I liked it. It was, I mentioned it in I'm not going to repeat too much of what the whole week was. It's just, there's the caveats that I've mentioned in past videos. And it's hard to recommend it for new users. I think you get through it, just takes some time. And then installing Sacrifice. I installed Sacrifice and Half-Life onto my device with my CD disk drive that's over here. I loved doing that. And really, to be honest, like, it was not a bad experience. There's a trick to it, of course, using Steam and Proton, which I do talk about in that video. I believe it was day 5 and 6. Yes. Day 5 and 6 video. I installed all that. And really, to be honest, it wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. You just got to make sure that you install it with Proton, and then you also run the game with Proton after installing it. And to uninstall the game, I'm just assuming you can potentially just delete the folder where the game was installed. That might just be your best bet. I don't know of any other way because, yeah, it's not really managed fully through Steam. So great. Old games, awesome. It's one of the reasons I got the Steam Deck, is to play old games, and I played Sacrifice on the controls. Like, once I set it all up, it worked great on the go. So really weird game to play on a mobile device, but hey, it did its job. The Steam Deck did for Sacrifice. So 2D game development, I recommend it on this. I don't recommend 3D. So if you need a cheap computer that can do a little bit of game development, this will work. Still, when it comes to any type of development, I probably wouldn't stick with this. I'd probably try to get a little bit better PC, especially depending on what you do, because I'm sure the renders on this are going to, even on the 2D, is going to take longer. But I was able to play around with an example project, and it seemed fine with Unity. So game development, good. Web development was easy with the software stack that I use. It's not like it's a very intensive stack, but once again, multitasking is not this device's, the Steam Deck, that is. It's not great. It's not great at it. Let's just say that. Once you start running too many things that are a little demanding, you're going to have issues with it. And yeah, I didn't try that with web dev. I kept it simple. I had a window open for web development and for my code. And then I believe I was watching something too with the device just to see how it would run, and it ran fine. I wasn't running an intensive project though. If the project has a ton of files, then IntelliSense might get thrown off a little bit with this device's power. Okay, so speaking of web dev and work and all that, I did a job interview with the deck. So I actually used the deck with the camera, with the mic, and just everything. Like, it worked fine. I know that's not, like, maybe it sounds too exciting, but hey, did a job interview on the deck. So cool. Just checking that off. I don't know if anyone's done that before. And then also, it's just at the end of the day, I was able to play games on desktop mode and on game mode. And that's what was great about this challenge, is that I always had the device on me. And so I was always able to play games. So yeah, it did its job. Still recommend game mode way more over desktop mode for playing games unless you have to. Some legacy games might work better in desktop mode. Okay, for the games that I recommend, Barrier. It is a great software package if you want to hook up multiple computers. I didn't really use it during this challenge because I wasn't using other computers except for my MacBook, which I just didn't want to install it on. And yeah, so when my Windows PC is normally right here and my Steam Deck's right here, then I usually uh, use Barrier to be able to share the keyboard and mouse. And the server is my Windows, and then the consumer, the client, is my Steam Deck, and it works really well, to be honest. And you can use it for Mac, Windows, Linux. So for all my devices, I can kind of connect them up, which I've kind of done this before anyways, and it is just nice to be able to do all the tasks I need to do. And then there's Chiaki, which is for PlayStation Remote Play, for me, PlayStation 5, and it did a good job. I really liked it. I think that it was a blast. It worked just as good as my mobile device, like my phone, playing with my controller, but I didn't need a controller. I just had this device, and it did great. And that was one of the great things about this whole thing. Yeah, so then I installed Discord. A couple of hiccups in Discord. Hopefully they fix some issues with the Linux version, but for the most part, it functioned the same. Just a couple of bugs audio-wise, and just it doesn't catch the streamer. Like, I think I had it do it once where it went into auto streamer mode when I was using OBS. I had it ping in a couple of videos that I redid, and so not perfect, still not bad, to be honest. If I had to live with, I could live with it easy. EmuDeck, that is not really through the Discover store, and these apps are through the Discover store and uses the Flatpak stuff. EmuDeck was a download you had to put onto your desktop and then run, but it does download stuff from the Flatpak, Flatpak's distribution system, and so it was awesome. And I got all my emulators and all that through it. And then Lutris. Lutris is your best bet of getting like running games through Wine if you want, or I think it could even do Protron, which might be a way to install games from the CD. I haven't checked that out yet now that I'm thinking about it. But Lutris also can do the Epic Game Launcher, GOG, and just various other launchers and systems. It's really nice if you are trying to just be able to run as much stuff as you can on your Linux box. Chrome, of course, you got to have the browser. Firefox is installed by default. Not a big fan of Firefox. I prefer Chrome. I have all my Chrome apps. It's just what I prefer. The weirdest thing with that, though, is when I switch between desktop mode and game mode, it all depends on if I had Firefox or Chrome. Even though I added Chrome to the taskbar, sometimes Firefox would pop up. Super bizarre. I don't get it. Spotify, gotta listen to those tunes. It's always worth it. It's no different. I had actually no difference in using Spotify on this device, and so I loved it. It worked great. Good job. VS Code, once again, didn't really have too big of issues running VS Code, and I put this on this list that I even recommend some people that don't code. Is Linux does have actually pretty good editors built in, like Kwrite, where it's decent enough to be able to read code if you need to. VS Code just is a little bit step up, and it might be nice. I don't know. Maybe you want to tinker around with some programming. It's always a nice lightweight editor, and it's my go-to for programming right now. VLC, it's what I install on everything. It's kind of old and getting a little bit worn and torn, I guess. Wondering if there's going to be newer versions of media players, but hey, why change what's not broken? So I used VLC to watch videos and watched videos after I recorded them and all that. Like, so it's a nice little media player, lightweight, and I like it. Flowblade, I put that on here. If you're gonna do video editing, it's the one I liked so far. There's some other ones I feel like are more powerful. This one was simple and I got things done with it. Once again, it's not my go-to, and if I was going to do this long-term, I would have probably ponied up the DaVinci Resolve cache to get the Pro or Studio version. I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, Flowblade's still great. And once again, with all 10 of those apps I just mentioned, you can install them through the Discover Store, with the exception of EmuDeck, which uses the Discover Store and the Flatpak system to install the emulators, but it itself needs to be installed from emudeck.com. I used Canva. Just as a little note, I did use some software that was online only, and Canva was that. That's what I do my thumbnails with. I like it a lot, so no installing needed. Liked it. Good experience. Once again, on Linux, didn't see any difference. Okay, things to know. Things to know going into, let's say, if you're planning on using the desktop mode a lot more. If you restart the deck, it will be loaded into game mode every time. Really frustrating, especially when you have it hooked up to a monitor. Sometimes the monitor, like the screen, will be zoomed in. They've been fixing it a little bit more with beta updates, but or just updates and patches. It was kind of annoying, and if I'm in desktop mode, I kind of want to just boot up into desktop mode when I'm restarting. It's, once again, if you're not using this as a main device and you're not going to use desktop mode very often, it's not a big deal. It really isn't. And that's what kind of showing me more and more that this really is first and foremost a game console before it is a desktop. It can do desktop stuff, but yeah. You can't run too much or the deck will just lock up. Like I've mentioned before, I've had multiple times where the deck just locked up. It did not handle. Apps didn't crash or anything like that. It would slow down. Things would kind of work, but I sometimes like the app to just crash, which people aren't going to like to hear this. And this might be more on like how these programs are installed or programmed. My Windows PC, which is right here, it handles crashing a little bit better. I know people don't like to hear that. People don't like seeing the blue screen of death, but you know what? I'd rather see the blue screen of death than just my system locking up and then I have to hard reset it. So once again, it could just be indicative to Arch, this version of KDE Plasma, and just various other drivers and all that. So this is not like a hit on Linux. This is just a hit on my experience with SteamOS so far, and it probably will get resolved in the future. I'm just noting what I ran into. You might not ever run into that. I did. Now, this thing is, I knew it kind of going into it. So you install stuff with Discover and Flatpak, and that's the way Steam recommends it. Valve, that is. You can also install programs using Pacman. But when you install software using Pacman, or installing it just from various different files that you can launch and install on your, or file types that you can install on your desktop, you run the risk of it getting erased I don't know if it's every time, but all I know is every time I patched my Steam Deck, which I did it twice, it erased everything that I had installed that was not through Flatpak, which I knew that was going to happen for the most part. So I wasn't like, oh no, this is disaster. No, I knew it was kind of coming. Like, it deleted or removed DaVinci Resolve. It removed my Node.js for web development. It removed a couple other, like my Notion desktop app. Nothing too big, just kind of annoying things that will happen when you update. Now, yes, Node is in the Discover Store. Doesn't work when I install it. So maybe there needed to be some additional references I needed to do. Referencing, that is, but just didn't want to deal with the hassle, so I just installed it through Pacman. Okay, so my final thoughts are on this. What I'd recommend with the Steam Deck is that if you have to budget for $400, if you only have $400 and enough to get a screen, keyboard, and mouse, this can go a long way. I'll be very honest. It can go a very long way depending on what you need to do. It could do homework. It can do video editing. It could do YouTube. If you need to do YouTube, it can do that. And it does it okay. Like, I am just so used to, I've been a power user, like, meaning I've had pretty powerful systems for a long time, to where downgrading to something like this, it did hit me a little bit. So, and with the frustrations, trying to get things out with my time restraints, really escalated my frustration at times using this. But I still do recommend it. If this is the only PC you can have and you have a $400 budget and you have everything else, then I don't know if you're going to get anything better than this, to be honest. and you can play games on it. It's optimized for games. But first and foremost, it is a game console, in my opinion, meaning it's very fluid. It uses Steam. You don't really need to get into desktop mode, really, to have a really good time with this. You'll be just fine in game mode. So I don't recommend it. If you really, really want to get into PC gaming, I recommend just building your own PC for $1,000 plus. And you're going to have, I think, a better time in the PC master race kind of stuff with the building your own PC. This is a great secondary. That's going into kind of what I think and how I choose to do this is that, or use this, is that this is my secondary PC. That's one of the big things. When I was playing, when I had my Windows machine and I was doing all my stuff, when I'm rendering, I'd pull this out and play. I like to play my Steam Deck while I'm doing other stuff on my other computers. It's great for that. I love this. This is my secondary PC. This is probably going to be what I play a lot of games, if not most of my games on these days on this thing. That being said, I can't say every game because there's some games that are just beautiful and I need to use my big screens to do that. This doesn't facilitate that very well. But for a lot of other games, it does. So for now, I'm sticking to Windows. I'm not going to switch to Linux, SteamOS. Hopefully that doesn't hurt anyone's feelings or anything like that. I know people really like Linux. I like Linux. I like Mac. I like Windows. I use the operating system that I need to use for what I do. And so far, Windows does what I need it to do for Unreal game development and just video editing, content creation. It just works great, to be honest. And my development, like web development, whatever development, I can do just fine on this. It's not a big deal. And so it just works. The last thing I have to say before we end this, I lost my zeal a little bit with this Steam Deck. I got really frustrated over the week. And so I wanted to play it less, actually, because of the frustration from this challenge. It's a me thing, I guess, but I'm glad to be done with it because I think I'm going to enjoy the Steam Deck so much more using it as a secondary device instead of the primary. It was a fun challenge. I plan to do more challenges in the future. It's just I'm going to have some breathing room for a while before I do another challenge. Very long time before I do another challenge, probably. And so with that, let me know in the comments below what you thought of the whole week. Did you do the challenge with me? Are you going to try doing a challenge? And just a note, a week is a lot longer for some than others. Just saying, I had to do a lot of work on this thing. I don't think people understand that sometimes. I've read some comments. It takes a lot of work to try to do content creation on this thing and also some of my other tasks I had to do. So with that, comments, I just want to know what your thoughts are. Even if they are saying that I need to switch over to Linux, I guess you can say that. So I like to hear what you guys have to say. Even if I don't comment, I do read every comment pretty much. So thank you guys for watching. Check out my other videos. Also check out our Discord in the description below. And I thank you guys for being awesome through this whole challenge. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace out. Later!